You could be working with 5 people in some crummy little office in some city somewhere. As soon as you have 5 people together, power games occur. Somebody thinks they're the boss. Somebody thinks they're number one. Everybody else has to play around them in some way or another. So the game always kind of forms in the same way. I read a lot of history. This isn't just for my research for these books. Well before I ever wrote my first book, I was continually reading books on history. I liked certain periods, obviously. I studied ancient Greek in college. That was my major. So I'm fascinated with all aspects of ancient Greece. And I'm very interested in the Renaissance and the time of Machiavelli. And I'm obviously very, very interested in French history, particularly the period of Louis XIV, etc. And so, when you read books about our past, there's a certain kind of dynamic that occurs with power. It's very simple. There's a king or a queen or an emperor, and they have a court, and the court surrounds them. And the court is filled with all of these people, princesses, dukes, duchesses, etc. And they're all vying to get closer to the king. They're all kissing up to him or to the queen, trying to get closer, trying to get access to the king. And in doing so, have all kinds of strange behavior. They pretend to love all of his ideas. They imitate him. They wear the same clothes. They mimic all of his ideas and fashions, etc. All to get the attention of the king and to draw some power. And so this kind of game evolved in these different courts going back thousands of years. And the game was, if you appeared too aggressive, if you were trying too hard to get ahead inside the court, you would look ugly. You would look inelegant, and people wouldn't like you, and the king wouldn't like you. So you had to be very indirect. You had to be very, very shrewd. You had to do what Napoleon counseled people to do, and that is to put his iron fist inside a velvet glove. So you hit people, and they feel the soft, velvety touch of it, but there's an iron fist going in. So you had to do all of these kind of shrewd little games to get ahead. So I'm reading all of these books about that because it fascinates me. And here I am in the work world, in New York, in journalism, in London, in television, in Paris, working at a hotel, in Los Angeles, working in Hollywood, in Italy, working on some silly project I won't even talk about. Here we are in the 21st century, or back then in the 20th century, I'm sorry. Here we are, so modern, so sophisticated, so technological, etc. The same goddamn game is going on. There's a boss who's just like a king or a queen or an emperor, and everybody is sucking up to him. Everyone's playing the same game, trying to get attention, trying to be clever, trying to get attention, but not offending the other people. Everyone is like mimicking the boss, saying how wonderful your idea is. Yes, that's fantastic. I love it. You're great. Okay, the same game, the same court game. People aren't wearing powdered wigs and long, gowns and hair up to here, but it's the same thing going on. They may not be thrown into prison and have their head cut off for a mistake. Instead, they're fired or they're tortured in the media for something that they did. But the game is the same. And so no one writes about that. No one talks about that. No one talks about this kind of ancient dynamic of being a courtier in a court as if that is our reality. But that is our reality because that is human nature. Once there is a person of power or people of power, something forms around them where everybody has to try and gain their attention, suck up to them without appearing to suck up to them, etc., etc., etc. It's like chess. The board game of chess might have looked different 2,500 years ago, or however, when it first invented. I don't know when exactly. Might have had pieces of carved wood that looked really weird and on sand with spaces carved out, and now we've got high-tech computer versions of it. But the game is the same. The rules are the same. The players are the same. That's what it is. That's what power is. It was so obvious to me as I was in Italy in 1995 on that job whose name I won't mention. It was so obvious to me that this person who was running the company that we were working for was just like a prince out of 16th century Italy, Florence or whatever. He was just the same, but no one talks about it. It made me angry. And so I wrote, based on that, the 48 Laws of Power, in which I tried to reveal this dynamic of the game playing that goes on, all of the politicking. And so the month of April is to kind of introduce you to this concept that might not seem so obvious to you, but I think will be very helpful to view the dynamic of the power games that are going on in front of you in your very face. And the thing is, you don't have to be working for IBM or for Microsoft or whatever, where there's 20,000 people. You can be working with 5 people in some crummy little office in some city somewhere. As soon as you have 5 people together, power games occur. Somebody thinks they're the boss. Somebody thinks they're number one. Everybody else has to play around them in some way or another. So the game always kind of forms in the same way. You don't think about that because you're trapped in this modern concept of, oh, we're so democratic, we're so fair, we're so sophisticated, we're so goddamn woke, we're so far beyond that world. Well, I'm sorry to say we're not one iota beyond that world. We're still trapped in something that was occurring thousands of years ago, because that's human nature. So I wanted you to see the people around you playing this game, constantly trying to not appear to be too aggressive, too ambitious, but at the same time doing all kinds of maneuvers to get the attention of the king or the queen, to kind of play to their best side, to try and downplay the other courtiers. Everybody is scheming for position, and it'll kind of alter your way of looking at the work world. Instead of being so naive, instead of falling for the illusion that we're all so democratic and fair, you will understand that there are some people who are manipulators. There are some people who are passive aggressors, who may not appear to be interested in power, but are still playing all kinds of weaselly little games where they're pretending to be so spiritual and so nice, but at the same time, they're some of the worst manipulators among them. On and on and on. There are these types. They recur. And this month of April is going to alter your way of thinking, so you begin to open your eyes up to the political games that human beings inevitably play when there's any group of 3 or 4 or 5 people together. So that's what that month I think will instruct you in.